All right, go ahead, Diva.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, and damn, it's a shame he probably fell asleep. But when he said whitewash, yo, it just hit home because I'm like, that's been running through my mind for a while recently. Because I'm like, a lot of history's been whitewashed. Like I'm seeing pictures of people, like legit um portraits and stamps and all these things. I'm like, these people are not who they were in school. These people were black. I mean, we ran the planet. This is what I used to say that knowing that, but when I look deeper and I'm seeing like the evidence and shit, and I'm reading the evidence, like not too long ago, I think it was a couple months, yeah, a couple months ago, I was watching I was reading the Virginia statutes at large, and this was like the beginning times of slavery and shit. And I was looking at the terms they're using for the people. I'm so like, it's funny how they don't say what they said today, what they said, what we were taught, but they taught us about that time, but did not use the same terminology. But these are the documents from that time. So why didn't they teach us this? So and recently I've been looking at like my family's name, and I've been tracing my family's name, like my grandmother, my dad, and I was just like, holy shit. And I'm looking at these other sources that were claiming this, and I had to look and verify it myself. And I'm seeing this shit because I think like last week or the week before I mentioned like the Irish,
Mm-hmm.
like yo, it straight up turns out that they were actually black. I just watched a video where this black Scotsman basically broke down everything that happened. Like they really prima nocta on all of us. This is why, and every subject today just touched on it with the abortion thing. All that just touched on everything I've been looking into. You know, we were running your. All right, let me just give you some tidbits. Britain, right? This is before it was called England. Britain is Paleo Hebrew for people of the covenant. And you know, I'm sure you heard of okay, so the United Kingdom, right? And their symbol, the flag and shit like that is the
The
Union
Union
Jack.
Jack. Yeah.
Okay. Jack is for the Jacobites, you know. And I'm like, huh. Then when the Anglo-Saxons and the Crusaders and all this and the Roman Empire, all these motherfuckers came in and slaughtered everybody and took over, and they did exactly what they do today with the fake news and shit like that. It was like a slow roll. So like the blacks were just running Britain, the United Kingdom, right? And I'm looking and I'm watching my family line. I looked at my girlfriend's family's last name and shit like that. And I'm seeing people from like Ireland and Scotland. Their names were not in English. English was new. So the way their names were written were like completely, it was like gibberish to me. But when the English came in, they changed it into the language of English. So that's why we have the names now. So when I think of my name and shit, like you see, like, all right, for instance, Denzel Washington, right? People will assume, oh, you got that from whoever your slave owner from back then was. Like a lot of, based on the Virginia statutes of law at large, that was their name. This was his name. These names are exclusive to them. It wasn't until the English changed it to English, and now it seems normal to us because we speak English. So we hear things like Williams and Knowles and shit like that. It seems so European and white to us, but we don't know that these were our original names that were changed from a certain language it was before that we were speaking. Yeah, and this is too much of a big subject to like dive everything into and be too specific. But when I see this and I'm like, oh my god, this is why in the beginning of the show I was like, I feel really good because learning this shit and knowing the power, and we already have the evidence of how much power we have as black people on this fucking planet. How much power we have. We just don't have We don't have the rulership anymore. We don't have that freedom anymore, but we still have that power because they are steering our power. Our power. They're controlling our power. They've usurped it, and now they're using us for all the things we could give, all the cultures we have. Because we spoke about this. Who taught them to live civilized lives? Who taught them how to shower and stay clean and shit like
We
that?
did.
We exactly. Right? But they have us thinking as we're growing up, going through school and shit, we were the primitives. We were the people running in the jungle and shit.
Them motherfuckers
You know how
couldn't
many
survive a fucking
empires were
plate.
in Africa? Come on, son. You know, so how we downgrade from that, then a white man come out of nowhere and they're better than us? Where does this come from? This doesn't make sense. These people are the Romans. These people are the before they took over Italy and shit like that. That's why I like the saying Rome never fell, they only rebranded. Because that's the case. They rebranded into Nazis and now there's something else today. You know, and they just took away our fucking history. They whitewashed everything, son. I'm looking at the original King James because I'm like, how does this correlate to the Bible and shit like that? Why does this make like why? You know, why would some white guy allow for the Bible to be translated and written and stuff like? Why does it doesn't make sense? Then when you look at it and you're seeing, oh no, this was a black guy that was just translating the book of remembrance. That's what it used to be called. And then they threw in the New Testament and deleted shit, added shit. That's why so many books are scattered. I had to dive into so many books to put all the pieces together. And when I see it and I'm seeing how much it parallels to today, that's why I keep saying like these people were not primitive back then, yo. They were not primitive. They probably didn't have computers and shit, for all I know. I could be wrong on that. But these people were not primitive. They knew what they were doing. They're just as intelligent, maybe even more. But the history, Rockefeller history will tell us they weren't. You know, but yet they were able to map everything and sail the seas and shit like that, discover lands. And, you know, it just never made sense. And when I put it together and I see this and I see how much power we have, and I'm like, all we have to do, yo, is just say no to these motherfuckers. It's historical. It's ancient that every time we fall, we never said no to them because we're the good guys in the story. Okay. We are so accepting and trusting of these fools that that's how they usurp us. And that's how they're doing it today with the whole fake news shit and this, that, and the other. They've done this before, but in different avenues. Before it was newspapers and before it wasn't like articles and stuff. It was like they actually put these things in books. So when you went to the library and stuff like that, you're reading it as if it was law. Imagine if you're a child back in those days and you're growing up on that, you're thinking it's true. Nowadays, this thing is instant. You look online, you're seeing lies believing it's true because they're the authority. You know, and they always put a little truth in there. So when you look back and try to ask a question, you're like, oh, so that's true. So the rest of them should be true. You know, you look at all the rulership of Britain and Scotland and Ireland, black faces, all the kings, black faces, all the queens, black faces. And not to say, I remember father once said like, yo, everybody has their coons, yo. Yeah, we had our own. A lot of them said yes to these motherfuckers and betrayed their own people. That's why we end up sent to the Caribbean islands, because a lot of them just said yes to the fucking the Anglo-Saxons and the Romans and stuff like that, and just said, okay, we'll send the criminals, the ones that don't say yes to your religion and things like that, and we'll send them to the islands, have them live there while we rule the rest of the shit. And eventually they got erased from history. And now we're learning about them as if they were the white man and shit. You know? And they know the numbers are fucking low. They know it. Since back then, that's why they did that. That's why they performed prima nocta and bred us out. That's why when you go to Europe today, it's pure white people. And it wasn't like that before. And this was a scheme. It was a slow roll. And I realized how much it connects to the 400 years of slavery. I realized how long it took for this to happen. And I put the dates together. And I'm like, that's exactly how long it will take for a whole race to just disappear. That's how long it will take to replace a whole civilization in one whole country. 400 fucking years. I said, this is why it happened. This wasn't, and I used to be in the thought of this was not, this was just how people were doing things. And now I stand corrected. Like, no, they did, this was their thing to do. They had to get rid of us. They had to enslave. They can't get rid of us completely. They need us. They need our creativity. They need that. They just need to control us. And those who refuse to be controlled was put into servitude and slavery, or lynched as and killed as examples. There was no slave trade of other people. No. There was only servitude of other people. But when it came to us, that's when shit started to go out of hand, son. They went out of pocket, started lynching people and shit like that. Because there was always servitude. There was always that. But you got paid, you had a timeline, you had a contract. But when it came to us, when they pushed us out of our rulerships and shit like that, we did not have that privilege of being able to work our way out of it and be free men and shit like that, like we did in the past, because they knew exactly what they're doing. Look where we are now. That's why this is why I get mad at like the black Republicans who like to coon and the leftists who like to bow and suck the dicks of the white people, of the Democrats. I'm like, this does not make sense. You keep saying yes to these motherfuckers, yo. Do you know once you learn your history, you're free of this shit? You know, that's why I never had that. I naturally never had that mindset, but this shit, it just backs the shit up. You know, and there's a lot of things I have to start rethinking for myself, and these conclusions I came to that I'm being corrected on, because I didn't even know that. I was falling into some of the narrative, and I was also questioning some of the narrative. And now I'm bringing so much truth is just hitting me at one time. Like, I'm working on a video that I cannot wait to get this done, so I could be able to break this shit down. I'm putting it on all my fucking platforms, because this is ridiculous what we're going through, and we do not have to go through this. These people are good, yo. As I said, geniuses, yo. There's a reason it's called evil geniuses, yo. These people are evil and they're geniuses. They know exactly what they're doing. Kudos to them, son, because they did it and succeeded. But it's not gonna last too long, yo. Because we're gonna get our fucking justice. I'll tell you that. Because a lot of people are waking up. The end. When I saw some biblical text and looked to today and saw when it ended, I don't know if anybody remember that whole walk away movement that came out. With a whole bunch of people that said I'm walking away from the Democrat Party. A lot of them were black, and it just so happened that the time frame of when slavery was predicted in the Bible and when it ended, and when that it ended the same year the walk away movement came out, and that's when I saw a lot of black people just dropping from that party. And I say, isn't that funny how that correlated? Isn't that funny that the people who translated the Bible back then, King James, he was black, and he knew his history, and he knew he was being conquered. So he was slick with it when he translated the Bible to make sure he added their shit, but left our shit there so we could fucking find out. So when I start reading it and putting two and two together and seeing what was going on at that time, I'm like, okay, our time is coming, son. I'm just trying my best to wake enough of us up, yo, straight up. Because this should not be happening. We should be back to rulership of this world, and not these motherfuckers. Straight up, because I can't believe I was thinking my whole family line were just, you know, I'm like, we were royalty. We ran shit. We didn't deal with this for our whole history. What the fuck? And they had this, but they bombarded us with this, and having us feel like we have to beg these motherfuckers. They're gonna beg you for nothing, yo. I'm telling you, I've always been like this against authority, but like today I'm telling you, is even worse, yo. There's no way. I'm not asking. That's why I fear no man, yo. I don't care what color you. I don't fear you, straight up, because I know who I am. I know who my people are. That's why it hurts when I see certain people say things and do things and shit like that. I'm like, I only wish you knew. So I'm gonna try my best to share what I know. But yeah, that's my final thoughts.
All right.
Flat Earth today.
No. All right, Crystal's on you.
All right. All right. So this week I'm dealing with something very difficult, and it deals with a person that's raised me, which is my grandmother. So, um, you know, when people have been so influential in your life, it's very hard to deal with them when it's time for them to go. So that's what I'm dealing with this week, and I'm doing the best that I can, guys. So that's why I was so quick to be like, my grandmother's calling me. I gotta, I gotta call y'all back. But for the most part, what my last thoughts is that any chance you get to really have long conversations with loved ones or the ones that has raised you, do so. um if it's any anger issues, and if it's anything that you feel like, you know what, mom or dad or whoever you feel you need to speak to, because they're getting older and they're just stuck in their ways and they're not going to fucking change anytime soon, put that aside. Really talk to them. Really ask all the questions you can before, god forbid, if they lose um their thought process, they get Alzheimer's, something serious happens, they can't move, or they're too tired to speak to you, they're not even strong enough to pick up the phone. Talk to them now that they are able bodied, because when when age sets in and they're not able to answer or be at least vigilant of the words coming out of your mouth, you are going to feel it. So please, guys, if it's anything that you need to say to a loved one, do it, because when the time is ready for them, for God to take them, you might not get that chance, or you might not have that conversation the way that you would have preferred to have it because of whatever reason. That's all I got to say.
100%. My mom used to tell me that all the time. So you're 100% right.
My uncle just had an argument with my brother about that. So I know exactly where you're coming from. All right. Father, is on you.
So I want to read this comment, and I kind of got inspired from what D Wolf was saying. So here it goes. They lack any sense of spirituality. The Western world is based on individualism, individual rights, individual liberty, everybody for themselves. Even when their own family is rotting in the street, they put their parents in elderly homes. The parents kick the kids out at 18 for their supposed own independence. They travel far east to find themselves. Previously, they mocked people from these cultures for their cultural dress, the food they ate, the language they spoke, their religious symbols, and the color of their skin. For example, they go on spiritual retreats and then claim to be yogis and gurus. They prevent and adulterate and commodify things that have certain cultural and religious significance. Take yoga as the best example. They go against the principles of the actual practice and even exclude those who belong to the culture. They even adopt foreign words to feign a sense of being sophisticated and cultured. They eat the food to try and give the impression of an experienced palate, but those restaurants don't serve the actual spice to those outside of their background. It's toned down significantly. They tan their skin but hate brown people. Capitalism and materialism is their religion. It's about narcissism and the individual. Empathy decreases over time. They don't care about the collective. Those that travel to third world countries do so not out of genuine compassion, but out of their own egotistical inclination and social status. It's performative. They don't even engage with people of a different color outside of the internet. They live in alien communities. They can't imagine a power higher than themselves. You hear about how trauma is generational. It's essentially inherited. So what does it mean for those who have passed down violence, bloodshed, barbarianism? Have you ever seen how those cultures rooted in spirituality have a great respect for their ancestors and even believe they're guided and protected by their ancestors? Who guides this kind? It has to be genetic. The hostility and propensity for destruction and exploitation is innate, fundamentally part of their culture. No empathy, sympathy, compassion, just psychopathy. No conscience. Every trait of narcissism, projection, dismissal, gaslighting, rage, deflection, devaluation, hostility. There is no reformation. Decolonization and dismantling whiteness are myths designed to lure you in an attempt to see a sense of humanity that doesn't exist. A narc can't change. How can something that is genetic disposition be changed when it is an inherent part of their nature? And this comment, like, first of all, is powerful as fuck. And not only that, but it reminds me of a video that I watched where there was this African man and he was just explaining how, like, they lived off the land and a lot of the shit that they knew, like the people in the West that were just figuring that shit out were writing it off as if they discovered it, as if like, oh, this is something new that we discovered, and it's been so profound. And the one thing that he finds very interesting is how they had to go to another land in order to discover the very thing that they claimed was new, was brand new, or was like something revolutionary that they have never heard of, but has existed for all these many years and has even been innovated in a lot of the in a lot of the ways and the cultures of those people. When we talk about indigenous people, and by indigenous people, I'm talking about Aboriginal Australians, Polynesians, Native Americans, Africans, like Southern Asians, like, you know, those type of people. When we're talking about indigenous people, one thing that we have to understand is that we've already been here. We've already seen and done everything that there is to be seen and done. The Western culture is what I like to call a teenage culture. It takes everything and they want everything to be big. They want everything to be grandiose. They want everything to be shiny, and they want everything to be about themselves. This is why they're so this is why, like, they're so used to hoarding wealth, and this is why they're so used to throwing away things that don't serve them, even if it's their own family members. But it's like with us, with indigenous people, we have a connection to nature because nature has an inclination to build itself up every single time something happens to it. You see it in the trees. When a tree gets knocked down, it will build itself right the fuck back up. And this is like nature at its finest. Rivers will still fucking flow. You know, trees will still fucking grow. The rain is still gonna pour. You know, like, you can't stop nature. And you know, we have a, like, we live in harmony with nature. You know what I'm saying? We don't try to bulldoze things down to build things that really don't serve us and things like that. Everything that we could ever need, the earth has already provided for us. So I think that it's time for us to like return to nature, or like really seriously contemplate how we can, you know, reconnect ourselves to like our biological functions, because we're not just, you know, people living in a city or living in a country or whatever. We're human beings living on the planet Earth. And I think that it's high time we get to that, because where we're going right now, this world is getting crazy as fuck. You feeling what I'm saying? Like, people are legitimately losing their minds, and we're living in a world where a lot of people have been disillusioned, and they don't know how to, and they don't know how to get back what was taken away from them. A lot of people don't even know what was taken away from them, so they think that the way they're acting is natural. But there is nothing natural about the way that we do things. There is nothing natural about us being in a motherfucking about us being in inflation, and yet we're still expected to pay everything in full, yet everything about the economy has been compromised. That's not normal. You know what I'm saying? If something has been taken away from you, then it should be given back to you. But we live in such a system that is, and this system is so, like, it's so what's the word I'm looking for? It's so oh, whatever. But anyway, like, what I'm saying is we just got to return to nature, and we got to remember that we as a people, like we as a human race, we are here to share. We are here to, you know, optimize, and we are here to build things up, because nobody can do it for themselves. I don't care who you ask. Nobody who is on this earth got here by themselves. So you know, we got to get back to what made us great in the first place. And those are my final thoughts.
Truth bomb dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Damn.
damn, y'all
Um,
coming through with y'all coming through with the final
Straight
thought.
up,
Dang.
yo. Straight up.
Y'all, y'all coming through with the final thoughts today. Um, First things first, happy birthday to Naja, my little sister. She finally turns 30, so
Three
uh,
O.
the
Happy
big 3
birthday.
0.
wow.
I think she went to go see Doctor Strange, and she said it was amazing. So I guess that's another movie I got to go watch. 'Cause Doctor Strange is not really like one of my favorite superheroes, but I I see why. I see why people like him. So,
I want to
but
see for Barrymore do. He's coming back.
yeah, I said the same thing about Moon Knight because I look at Moon Knight like a C tier hero, but it seems like people like him. So,
Yeah, my
and
little brother loves him.
yeah, only reason I know about Moon Knight is because of Clarence, and we was what was it, Marvel's Ultimate Alliance?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I played that over Clarence's house, and then that's where I learned who Moon Knight was. That's how I learned who most of the Marvel superheroes. That's
Yeah,
where
that game helps.
that game does help. And then like you go see their comics and what they doing, or that's how I found out who Luke Cage was. Because as soon as I seen him, I was like,
mm,
who is this Luke Cage dude? I was like, oh snap, this man is kind of legit. He's from Harlem
Power Man.
and Power Man. I said,
Hmm.
oh, okay, that's it. So happy birthday to Naja. Also, second thing I wanted to talk about is because because I think someone mentioned BBL earlier, and I when we was talking about Roe versus Wade, and I've always had this thing where it's like where women they always say that men are trying to regulate women's bodies, and yet to some extent that is true, like the Roe versus Wade thing. But I do feel like there are sometimes we're not trying to regulate your bodies, but let's say things like BBLs or some type of plastic surgery where you get instead of getting them professionally done, they like go to the Dominican Republics and get them from cheaper, and then they end up dying on the operation tables. I just heard about a story about a black woman that just went to the DR and they held her body for a week, and nobody knew she died till like a week later.
Mhm.
When it comes, and I know a lot of people when they say your body, your choice, but when it comes to BBLs, if you ask me, should you think she be? I'm telling you, no, off the break. I done seen too many. I've done heard too many black women dying off of BBLs to where to the point where it's just like I don't. Was majority of y'all don't even need it anyway because some of y'all got regular jobs like lawyers, and what does a lawyer need to do with a BBL just because you look good? That's not part of your profession. I said I think like I said before, unless you are an entertainer or a stripper and you're trying to make more money, to even then it's like I still don't see the need. I don't think a lot of y'all need BBLs. So that's why I'm always telling people you don't need it. Um, I it's another thing there. I feel like things like that when men tell you you don't need it, you're beautiful the way you are. I feel like sometimes it falls on deaf ears, and then sometimes it gets delegated as us trying to regulate women's bodies. I think you got to understand oppression versus protection, because I feel like there's some things that men do when we tell you don't go there, don't do stuff. It's to protect you, especially if fathers have daughters and they know if especially if they was like fuck boys or slime balls in their past life and they don't want their daughters with this. Yes, it is hypocritical, but I do understand it to a point. You don't want to see your daughter with a fucking sleazeball. But I've always said this. You There's oppression and then there's protection. Sometimes if I tell you don't go down that street or don't go down that road, there's killers, drug dealers, and robbers there. I'm not doing that to prevent you from living your life. I'm doing that to protect you because I don't want to see nothing happen to you. I think that gets confused in a lot of these conversations about regulating women's bodies. And when we tell you like we don't like that we don't like that, it we rather you natural. I don't want you wearing weave, even though I know some people wear weave. Stop wearing weave. We're not doing that to regulate you. Sometimes it's just to protect you or to like keep you healthy. There's a lot of things that both men and women do, but mostly I see most of women do this. That y'all do things that are detrimental to your body, and it's like I don't want to see y'all die off of that. Especially if you don't need it. So a lot of the women, I want you to understand that if some men they tell you don't do this, or they're trying to be the protector and the provider that some of y'all really want, there's a lot of things that we're not going to let y'all slide or we're not going to let y'all do just because not just for our image, but we're just trying to protect you as well. And I think as protectors, we're going to say things that you're not going to like or you want to do, and we're just not going to say no. And sometimes you got to understand that we're just doing it to protect you. So that's all I got to say about that. Um, I'd like to thank the panel for jumping on as usual. I'd like to thank all y'all for listening to hear us talk our shit again. This is You Know What? Let me just say podcast, and we're signing out. Peace.
Cheers.